Are we live streaming? Hey, everybody. So again, as always, I'm pushing this out to my YouTube channel. This is Conversations with Mitch Gray. And of course, I always look for the affirmation from YouTube, which we just got. So welcome, everybody. Of course, this is Conversations with Mitch Gray, and my name is Dr. Keith McNally. For those of you who are dedicated and watching this on a weekly basis, we always mess with you because it's never on the same day twice. So today it happens to be, what day is it, Mitch? It's Wednesday
I
afternoon,
think
right?
it's a Wednesday, I think. Yeah, and I have to say, I take full responsibility for the adjustment and schedule. That's on me. Just
Quite all
how it
right.
is.
So
Just
your
how it
schedule
is.
is changing. You've got a new job, or you're kind of making some adjustments in there. But I do always appreciate your time because this is a real pivotal moment in, I think, both of our lives. We're actually taking on some new projects, some new trajectories. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So let's take a step or 10 steps back, if you don't mind, because it's always good to ponder the proverbial, what is the meaning of life? And I know that's a big, broad umbrella, but I think in 30 seconds or less, or 30 minutes or less, we can tackle that.
30 seconds.
30 seconds or less.
It's gonna be a short video today.
Gonna be a
30
short,
seconds. Here we go.
short
30 seconds.
conversation, and
Yeah.
then we'll switch gears. And so we often pondered, especially somebody who, like me or like us, uh, 5 suicide attempts, one heart attack. There's going to be pivotal moments in life where we do take a step back and say, life puts us at a standstill. It stops us
Right.
and asks us to reevaluate what's going on. Maybe the things that led up to that situation, circumstance, decision are rather significant, and you need to take a look and ponder all of the things that are going on, all the things that are wrapped up in that, and really ask yourself, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of my life? Where's the value in it? Mitch, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this really connects with what we talked about last week when we were talking about identity.
Mm-hmm.
And we related identity to oftentimes we make the mistake of saying our identity is what we do. I'm a teacher, I'm a lawyer, whatever. We could go on forever, an athlete, whatever. And our mistake is we attach, and I made that mistake. We talked about that some last week when I was, 10 years old and felt like my calling was to be a preacher, and that became my identity. And when that was taken from me as a profession, it really took from me my identity because I did make the mistake of attaching myself to that's who I was, not what I did. If we're really lucky, it's both. So maybe you do have a passion for teaching and you do become a teacher of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
or you do have a passion for law or representing a certain group of people and you get to do that as a profession. So a few of us get really lucky and get to do it both as a profession and as an identity, but not very many people get to do that. So when we're talking about the meaning of life, I think we're actually relating something very similar to what we talked about that last week. But my point this week would be regarding attachment, detachment, is that is we can't attach to what we think the meaning of life is in this moment in time because it's going to evolve, it's going to grow, it's going to change. When we're 2 years old, the meaning of life is what we want at that moment in time. I want a sucker, or I want, when we're younger than two and we're still wearing diapers, at some point in life, literally the only meaning of life for us is I need my diaper changed. Hopefully, we
Sometimes at
have some,
55, it's the same
sometimes even
thing.
as we get older, yeah. And so the meaning of life actually evolves and changes. And in those moments that you're discussing and you're identifying, those moments where we're contemplating the true meaning of life, and if we want to continue in this existence as we know it, that has evolved or devolved from whatever we felt like the meaning of life was at any point in time. And before the show, we were kind of talking about, you were sharing with me a book that you're reading right now, talking about the journey of the soul. And my response was, the meaning of life really is kind of what we want it to be. And that's kind of where I think we get caught up is like we're so busy searching for the meaning of life that we forget the moment and the existence that we're in right now. And it's when that overwhelm hits us, the overwhelm of what is life hits us, that we become distraught and we become desperate and we become filled with darkness and filled with confusion and filled with things outside of what the true meaning of life is. Because at the end of the day, our self worth is truly meant to be found in just the existence of this being, because we're much greater than this being. And we've talked about that before many times. The soul's energy, the essence of who we are, is much greater than the being of meat packed bones that we're experiencing right now. And so when we talk about the meaning of life, it's like, okay, what is the meaning of life now? But also, what is it going to be moving forward? And it will be very different 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
And the reason I brought that up prior to, going live here, so just to fill in, and I'll fill in the blanks. I'm reading a book on the Akashic records, and so that can blow our audience. What the heck is that? And so I'll just give a reference real quick. The Akashic records. So basically, if you believe in this type of stuff, it is the record of all of humanity or all of life. It's actually written down somewhere in the spiritual. Each one of us has a story, has a narrative. That narrative is written down, past, present, future. And if you believe to the extension of that, and most religions do to a certain way, all of our lives, past, present, and future. So if we believe that we have past lives or multiple past lives, everything that you've done has been written down. Coming to the point where the author does indicate that we have two, or at the very least two. We have a purpose in life, this living life, and then we have a soul purpose. What is your soul journey? What is that? The essence of your entire being aligns with what you've always said. And so I kind of brought the two together and say, our purpose for being is to just be, is to exist, is to find that place in life. I think we could go deeper than this, but find that place in life where existence, being, is the utmost important over the doing and everything else that is part of our life, but appreciating who you are, where you are, what you are, and how you got there is
Yeah.
really the purpose. Now, a lot of us want to say, well, I need a better purpose than that. Well, that's then your life's purpose. You may have a life purpose in this life. So at this point, my life's purpose is to be able to share that, is to be able to
Mhm.
share what I've done in life, the trials, the triumphs, and the journey between all of that
Mhm.
stuff. You know, like I said, 5 suicide attempts, 1 heart attack. If I were to go through this life, and let's just say, for sake of conversation, I'm going to do it again at some point, and I've done it in the past. Let's just say that's true. I want to make sense of those 5 suicide attempts and not
Mhm.
1 heart attack
Mhm.
because I don't need to do it again. I don't need to have
Mhm.
another heart attack. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Because it
Right,
hurt
right,
like hell.
right, right.
But it also meant that I was doing something that was not in alignment with my physical health, my emotional health, my mental health.
Mhm.
The suicide attempts, the same way. What was going on in my life that brought me to this point to make a specific decision? Because we all go through life and we all need to
Yeah.
figure out where is our value? Where is our identity? Where is the peace
Right.
we're
Right.
looking for? Because we
Yeah,
all,
I think the other side of that coin though is if you remove any experience from your life, you aren't where you are now. And we often think about, okay, well, if I change an experience, I would be in a better place, but we don't know that. We don't know that for sure because it's through the experiences that we've had that has helped us arrive at where we are today. And it's the experiences of today that will help us arrive at where we all are tomorrow. And I think I could say this for you, and I think for most people, when I look back on my life, my perception and perspective is much greater and of a higher quality now than it was before those experiences.
mhm.
And so if I remove any of those experiences, then I become a different person than I am today. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that feels like or who I am. And so I think that's kind of the point of the question that is really difficult to discover. What is the meaning of life? I think the meaning of life is just to simply experience in its fullness this experience because there are other experiences and what those look like, we don't know. If you're of some faiths, it looks like heaven or hell. If you're of other faiths, it looks like nirvana. If you're of other faiths, it looks like reincarnation. We know that the stories are so vast that there are other experiences, but we don't know what that looks like. To some people, there is no other experience. But I would offer that in some form or fashion, there is something. But what we have right now is what we have right now. And that is this experience and
Mhm.
this meaning and this purpose and this desire. And so, really, all of those experiences have accumulated to bring us to where we are at this moment in time, which is what we've talked about before. And that is what matters most. It's this existence, this moment in time. That's all that exists. There is no past, there is no future, there's only this moment. And so, the meaning of life is this moment. And how can we vibrate at the highest frequency and be fully present in this moment and every moment going forward?
I think we have to take into consideration the things that we have experienced, and I'll put
Yes.
the ED, in the past. So whether we're
Yeah.
conscious of it or not conscious of it, if our life is in this being moving in a linear direction forward, even though every moment is in itself unique and special.
Yeah. What does that even mean exactly? Right. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So there has to be still life is moving us in a specific to do to reach a certain, I think you said it, highest vibration,
yeah.
highest level of consciousness. Verbiage doesn't matter, but to gain that space, to
Right.
be in that space. Because I'll be honest, if you were to ask me, Keith, I would, no, I am not in that highest vibrational experience, that highest level of consciousness.
Sure.
Um, I'm not ready to knock on heaven's door and,
Right. Right.
open up those pearly gates. And it's not that I don't want to. I would love to be able to cross over that threshold, but I don't feel that I'm at that space and experiencing all that life should be.
Hmm.
Although I think I'm on the right journey now than I
Hmm.
ever have been. And I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the
Hmm.
journey, not just living the experiences and the next experience and the next experience. There is something I'm moving towards.
Hmm.
It's not my next job. It's not a higher level of income, although that would be cool.
That would be great. Yeah.
That would be cool. Um, it's the inward journey
Right.
that I am transforming into.
Right. Right.
And I know that's all esoteric and kind of vague and abstract, but to be honest, Mitch, that has given me more meaning and
Hmm.
value
Yeah.
than I've ever experienced experienced before, because
Right.
before the meaning and value, going back to what do you do for a living, has
Yeah.
always been in, you know, oh, well, what kind of car do I drive? That's kind of
Hmm.
a status symbol. Or how big's my house? Or where
Yeah.
exactly do you live? Um, these are all, things that we can easily put our value in,
Right. Right.
but then I would always be looking for that next
What's
vehicle.
next? What's
Yeah.
next? Yeah,
And
that's
it
exactly
always
right.
feels empty. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's always a part of us that will have that to some level or degree. Um, but I think it really becomes the idea of contentment, and that has a lot to do with being okay with this moment in time.
Mm.
No matter what the circumstances or the situation is, that is the idea of contentment. Is I'm really okay with my self-worth at this moment in time. And that's a process. And I don't think we ever reach perfection. One of my favorite teachers is Thich Nhat Hanh, and he always taught and still teaches through his message that it's always an ever evolving process. We never arrive. We're always growing, always evolving, always maturing. Our
Mhm.
perception and our perspective is always changing because the experiences and how we deal with them. We've joked before quite a few episodes ago about how I think life is like a video game. Like future self has designed this level to see if we can arrive at a certain place, and we continue going through that level over and over again until we get it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how life works itself out. And so each moment and experience is helping us arrive at a different place in time. And that becomes the meaning. The meaning is what it is. It is the meaning, and it changes. So it's like in 2 years, what is the meaning of life? It's different than it was now. And in 10 years, it's different than it's going to be in 2 years because those experiences change who we are, what we're about. Just like you said, what you're doing now and your drive and ambition now is very different than what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, because your focus, your perspective has changed and shifted into the more spiritual things of life. When you and I first started having conversations, I was talking a different language than you were talking. But now you're speaking much the same language. It's because you were introduced to something that maybe was different than you had been introduced, or in a way that was different than what you had been introduced. And it's almost like life invites us into a new conversation. And that becomes the new meaning. That becomes the new idealism. And that's a really, really cool thing.
That could be in a podcast.
Good.
Life invites. That sounds pretty
Yeah,
good. But I think you're right. And regardless of how you perceive it, the universe circles back around. You've got to learn this
yeah.
lesson. You've got to do this. I still take it for me that there's this journey that does have
Mm,
a specific end. I
mm,
think is it the Buddhists is it Taoist or Tao philosophy that does say that there's the reincarnation component. You come back until you learn it. You come back until you um, not self-realization, but there's a pathway to enlightenment. I think that's what it's
yeah.
called. And there's this pathway. So there has to be this end. I don't want to do this forever. I'll be quite honest.
That's the point.
I'll be quite honest. I don't want to come back and say, man, there wasn't something that I didn't learn
Right,
last time and I've got to
right,
do this again. I don't want to do it forever. I want there to be the end result of all of my efforts. But not only that, I want there to be a conscious movement forward so that I could say, oh, this, and this happened,
right,
this, and this were results. And because of that, I can make intentional pivots to move in the direction that I know I should be moving into. Otherwise, I will be continually going back. The universe is going to come back with a 2x4 or a 4x4. And that hits harder.
It's,
That hits a whole lot harder.
yeah.
And one of the things that I'm learning in therapy specifically,
Mhm.
my therapist has got me doing something called timeline therapy, which is really,
Mhm.
really interesting because I'm not a pro at it yet. I'm just going to get
Yeah.
starting in this new space. But I don't, I was about to say I have to. She's asking me to visit
Mhm.
my past.
Yep.
She's asking me to visit my past to come clean with it, to
Mhm.
experience it, and then not necessarily rewrite the narrative, although I would like to, but it's
Yeah.
rewrite the expectations, I guess is a good way of putting it,
Yeah.
of what I would have wanted based on what actually happened. And so from that movement forward, I could say, okay, well, this is my emotional response. This is my cognitive
Mhm.
response. This is my
Mhm.
physical response.
Mhm.
I can now own it and kind of clean it up a bit. You know,
Yeah,
I
we
could,
call that cognitive reframing, is what that's
is it,
called.
is it?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I could kind of, own it and then be okay with it. And how does she
Yes.
phrase it? Um, I don't know if like how does that sit with you? But really, it's about being able for me to appreciate the
Yes.
emotions that are associated with life,
Hmm.
because without that, and this is what I'm getting from both my therapists and all the spiritual gurus out there, I have to be good with my emotions. I have to
Yes.
own them. I have to resolve any conflicts around them,
Hmm.
and I have to understand them, which is the
Right.
biggest challenge.
Right.
It's the biggest
Right.
challenge, but
I
I'm
like
getting.
it. Good for you, man.
Any final thoughts today on the purpose and meaning of life?
The meaning is the meaning, and just allow it to be.
Okay, we can work with that. Mitch Gray, as always, I appreciate the conversations we have on a regular basis. For those of you who have been watching and listening, we'll see you next time. Take care.